All right, everybody. Well, good morning. I think all of you know who I am. I don't see any new faces, but just in case, I'm April May. I'm a licensed Unity teacher here with Unity Center of Light. And I am blessed this morning to be your cruise director today. So we have some wonderful opportunities in store for us to hear from our guest speaker, Reverend Richard Pacheco, and our guest musical diva, and I mean that in a good way, Rhonda Dene. So what I'd like to do is get started with y'all by sharing our mission and our foundation statement. And I'm going to ask you to join in those with me to set the tone for today. So, the mission of Unity Center of Light is to empower individuals to express their indwelling divine identity. We teach there is a power within each of us far greater than anything that exists outside of us. And our foundation statement: together, there is only one power and one presence active in my life and affairs: God the good, omnipotent. Amen. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the share now, and I am going to ask Aaliyah if she could share the daily word with us for today.
Absolutely. Good morning, Unity family. The daily word for Sunday, August 18th, 2024, wholeness. As a divine being, I am whole. I know I am whole, wondrously made, and a unique expression of the divine. But I cannot truly know wholeness if I become distracted by an experience of illness or thoughts of lack of limitation. I do not resist limiting thoughts. Instead, I let the light of divine understanding dissolve the darkness of spiritual ignorance. Remembering that divine life lives as me, I affirm my body's wholeness, even if I am experiencing illness. Growing awareness of the limitless flow of divine ideas reminds me I have all I need to experience a joyous, abundant life. As I say yes again and again to my true spiritual nature, my life becomes an ever unfolding demonstration of wholeness. If then your whole body is full of light, with no part of it in darkness, it will be as full of light as when a lamp gives you light when it rays. Luke 11:36.
And thank you, Aaliyah, for sharing that moment of wholeness with us from the daily word. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Before we move on into the meat and potatoes, as I like to think of it, I just would like to take an opportunity to see if there is anyone who's here with us for the first time so that we can welcome you. I have a couple of screens worth of people, so which is the good news. Is there anybody who's with us for the very first time? All right. Well, I'm not going to call us old timers, but I'm going to say that we are most timers. How's that? We are most timers because we're mostly here, right? So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our guest speaker, Reverend Richard Pacheco. I had the great good pleasure of meeting Richard through his work with the Unity Urban Ministerial School, and also he's going to be a presenter at our fall conference this year on communications ethics. And Richard has spoken for us several times before, so you know that he is deeply steeped in unity and very much a proponent of using our principles and our powers to be forces of good in the world. And I count him among those practitioners. So I'm just going to say welcome, and we're glad to have you with us, Richard.
All right, thank you, and always grateful when I receive that invitation. Normally I start off with a prayer, but I thought today, one of the themes that I always constantly talk about is being present, and you'll hear that again at the end of the talk today. So I just want to take everybody through a very quick quick breathing exercise, which was given to me a number of years ago when I got my bachelor's in metaphysics on how to be present within a few breaths. So let's just take a deep breath in right now, knowing we are here, we are present, and release. And we're going to count. And if the count is a little bit long, we're going to do a 6-3 count. If it's a little bit long for you, do a 4-2. So basically, let's breathe in for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3, 2, 3. Release for 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. We're going to breathe in for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. Breathe out for 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 3, 2, 3. Final breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 3. 1, 2, 3. Let go for 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 3. Full deep breath in and out. And I hope that helped you become present. I know for me, I've shown this to many college students, I've shown this to that, and they all feel like the world just kind of disappears and they're focused in this moment. And that's what's important right now, is that we're here, we're present with each other, and that honors all of our time today. So again, my title today is Embracing Our Inner World for Our Outer Harmony. And this came a number of years ago. My daughter used to always make fun of me. We're big Pixar, Disney fans, and she used to talk because I'd get excited during the movie and she'd be like, oh, well, you could pull a Unity lesson out of every movie we watch. So I issued her a challenge. We'll see if it comes to fruition. I said, well, we used to do a talk called Tea Time Truth Talk, where she used to bring her generation's problems and I would give a spiritual solution. So we kind of fell away from that. I said, well, now we need to do metaphysics at the movies and do the same thing. Challenge me to watch a movie. But the movie I chose today was Inside Out. And if you haven't watched the movie, just no warning, there's going to be a lot of spoilers today. But what got me excited about the title was actually watching Inside Out 2. And I will tell you that that's the talk I'm going to do in October. But we're going to talk about that. So, Inside Out basically is a story of a young girl who starts off born in Minnesota, raised, used to school. And I know because my kids have gone through this at the time we've moved, where they've had to get a new school, they have to get new friends, they have to do all of that. And emotions are running deep. In fact, I love the way the movie opens up because it's just a black screen and you hear a voice say, have you ever looked at someone and wondered what's going on in their head? And we know what goes on in our head. So being that this is the first movie, it talks about her birth, her moving, going into hockey, going into all of that. So we talk about the 5 basic emotions. We know joy. We know sadness. We know fear. We know anger and disgust. And how each one plays an important part in our life. And the part of what's important to us is understanding those emotions. I love that Lisa Nichols talks about, I mean, she uses the term victimhood, but she says it, she goes, it's okay to visit every so often, but it's not good to move in. And it's to understand that we have such a complex thing of emotions that we tend to kind of hold on to one and then we'll defend it rather than release it or work with it. And I think this movie spells it perfectly. All right. So when we talk about emotions, Riley shows herself, and I love it because if you watch the movie, it's hilarious because it goes from Riley's emotions, and they have little characters for each emotion, to her mother's emotions, and then her mother's emotions to her father's emotions, and they kind of mimic each other. And how as adults and as children, we kind of jump around. But the point is that we have such a complex point of emotions within ourselves, whether it is joy, whether it is sadness. And we may not see that in other people. But once we understand what's going on within ourselves, we truly understand what's going on in others, and we can use that to empathize with them. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what normally we don't talk about, and that's the role of sadness in our emotions. See, in the movie, Riley has the emotion joy, and joy tends to try to grab and do everything. We have to keep Riley happy. We have to keep that. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been in Unity for 15 plus years. And there are times when we've heard that spiritual malpractice of, okay, well, we're doing affirmations, we're doing this, we're doing that. So we should be positive in every situation. Well, that's almost impossible because we're human. And that's what's important is the human experience, because that allows us to evolve. So why do we want to be sad? Well, let's look at it. In the movie itself, as I said, the character Joy keeps walking around, keeps coming around. We're trying to, core memories have to be happy. Core memories have to be this. And those core memories we're talking about are those major milestones in our life. Now, we know that a lot of times those milestones change. You know, it could be a death in the family, it could be a transition in a job, a relationship, whatever it is. And when we try to practice, you know, as we say, spiritual malpractice, and we try to make everything happy, everything dead, look at the positive, whatever, it's great. We move into that place, but sadness plays a role. It is because of sadness that we learn to miss someone. It is because of sadness that we may now begin to learn to emphasize with other people. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says it best. He says, when little truth to become real truth has to be proven. So when we look at ourselves and we look at the characters in the movie and we look at the people around us, the word is emphasize. Now I'll teach you something that I've taught every call center person that I've worked with for the last 23 years. And this may surprise you. I've taught them this, and Brene Brown actually has a talk on this, and they created a whole cartoon video that I use for training as well. But when somebody tells me their problem and I say, I'm sorry, the underlying tone of that is, it sucks to be you, but I'm okay. So when I'm saying I'm sorry to you, I'm really just telling you, well, I feel bad for you, but I'm good. When we when we emphasize, ooh, coffee ain't kicked in yet. When we put ourselves in their shoes, pretty much, we understand. So that emotion of sadness gives us that because we now can feel what they feel. You know, when someone comes to me and says, you know what, I don't have money, I have all my children, and I've been there. I know that. I know what the struggle is. And I can say, hey, you know what? I know what you're going through. And this is how I got through it. And sometimes when you don't know what to say, that sadness gives you emotion just enough to say, hey, I don't know, but I'm here for you. We talk about life being a cycle. In the movie, Riley has to go from her old home to a new home, a new school, new friends. The problem is the focus usually is on what we lost instead of what we're gaining. And that point of sadness is not sadness as in negativity. That point of sadness just says, hey, I miss my friends. Hey, I miss my school. Hey, I miss my old neighborhood. But guess what I'm gaining? So we're going to have a few biblical passages I'm using today, and I always use the words of Jim Rohn. He says, if you take the religiosity out of the book, it's a book of great life lessons that we can use. So in this case, this biblical passage is probably misused more to prove the point of ending something than it is to truly listen to it and understand that for every death, there's a birth. And for every cycle, there's a recycle. So when we look at Ecclesiastes 1 through 8, Most people stop at 2. We're going to go the whole way. So it's for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. When we understand that for every opposite reaction, for every consequence, every action, there's a consequence for every that. We always talk about how the pendulum swings. And if we look at life, if we have a list of all the great things that happen to us and all the bad things that happen to us, or at least our perspective of what badness is, that pendulum will swing both ways and will continue to swing. But it is our perspective to find that emotion within ourselves and use it. And the other emotions that we haven't touched on, anger, disgust, and fear, all play an emotional part within ourselves. But it's when we change our perspective of what each one of those emotions are. You know, my wife used to always joke with me because when I started my journey, and this was way before I even knew what unity was, but I was listening to people like Wayne Dyer, and I was listening to people like Deepak Chopra, and The Secret had just come out and things like that. She used to joke, I went from angry Puerto Rican to Big Buddha because of the fact that I've changed my outlook. And that was a big work in progress. But I understand even today when anger rises, I have a choice, that free will we talk about, to ask myself, why? To ask myself, why am I feeling this anger? Where is it coming from? And maybe that anger may turn into fear at this point because now fear is, well, I don't know. Why is this happening? Or maybe it turns into disgust and it's like, because I'm tired of hearing this or I'm tired of experiencing this. And then sadness may come on. It's like, well, why am I going through this? But at the end of the day, I can still return to joy because I can sit there and say, guess what? The Richard that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, who couldn't understand anger and just lashed out, can now understand those feelings and utilize them. So when we talk about changing our perspective, it always reminds me of Romans 12:2. And again, each one of these are from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. And it's, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and what is acceptable and what is perfect. When we can see through the lenses of God, and if I had a slideshow, I usually have a guinea pig with little love glasses on that lets you know we're looking through our God glasses. But we're looking at it from a different perspective. When we transform our mind, I always said that if I ever got my own or decided to plant a church, that at the behind the stage would always be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. On the left side, I wanted Johnny Coleman's It Works If It Works It, and on the right side, I wanted Reverend Ike's You Can't Lose With What I Use. And then going out the back door is Leave With the Peace in Your Heart. And it's because each one of these sayings to me reminds me that my mind can change. My emotions are tools. See, what get the climax of the movie is when Riley Joy has ran because Joy thinks that it has to rule everything. And sadness has ruined it because sadness keeps touching the core memories and she thought it was a bad thing. Again, that's spiritual malpractice. Everything needs to be happy. So now in the head space, and like I said, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. They have a little control panel that controls her mind. Now you've got anger, you have disgust, and you have fear left in the space. No joy, no sadness. And they're trying to make us, joy was always in charge. So now I don't know what to do. Well, all she was left with was anger. And she decides to run away from home. Now, why is that? Because her perspective, her mind at this moment is telling her, I'm mad because my parents moved me. I'm mad because I got to make new friends. I'm mad because I want to do this. So all she could see was that the only way to fix this is to go back. So she tries to run away from home. But when joy and sadness begin to understand each other and they join forces and make it back to that headspace, and they say, sadness, take over. Now, I can tell you, had I not been in Unity or done any of these studies, sadness taking over was definitely not something I would ever think about. But sadness takes over. And as she sat in the bus, she started to think about how she missed her life, how she saw how her mother and father stood by her, how things were going. And she finally says, let me off the bus, and runs home. And finally admits to her parents how she missed everything. And that became a circle of memories and a circle of friends and a circle of joy that came from a space of sadness. So it's okay to feel emotions, but we need to understand that we are complex in our emotions. We are complex in that the fact that when we get stuck in one emotion, we do not allow that God within us, that creativity within us, that divinity within us to show, because that divinity already knows what that outcome is. We know that. Because there are plenty of times that we will act against our divine nature. And when it's all over, we may have gotten what we thought we wanted, but part of us inside of us feels like we've missed out on something, or we realize what it should have done. When we talk about practical Christianity, or we talk about being the Christ for ourselves and for someone else, we remember that Jesus said, judge with right judgment. And to do that, we must be in a perspective mind of looking through those glasses. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, and remember what I said about truth, to be little t, to go to big T, we need to prove that it works. So finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about those things. Think about it. Give thanks for the sadness in your life because you had an experience that allowed you to feel that emotion. Give thanks for the anger, the joy, the disgust, the fear in your life, because each one is a teacher that has been presented to you within yourself. And when you go through that, you'll understand. And what's the beauty of that is when you understand yourself, you now can begin to understand others. I always talk about, I love the song. It is from a CSL minister, Pastor Greg Sumter, and the song is called Be Jesus. And the lyrics go, be Jesus, be Buddha, be Krishna for someone, because you may be the only Jesus, Buddha, or Krishna that person will ever see. But to get to that point, we must be acting from our Christ self. We must be at a point where we understand that our emotions, we can look at even horrific acts and understand where it may have begun. Doesn't say we have to agree with it, but we can understand where it begins. And when we can do that, then we now can be that Christ-centered person for that next person. I talk to my children all the time about this. I say, my job is not to tell you what it is. My job is to be an example of what needs to be done. And I fall, just like every other person as I go through this human experience. But I also know that I can take that breath, maybe do that 3 breath that we did at the beginning, and center myself back to that point of knowing. There's a song I love, and my daughter's performed it a few times when I've spoken before, by Faith Rivera, called Gifts of the Storm. And I listen to it and tear up because it reminds me that even in the worst of times, there are gifts I can find. So today, I want you to remember that it is through this practice of understanding our emotions, it is through this practice how each one of our emotions plays in a specific part. And because you're sad right now, it's not a bad thing. But understand that there is joy that can come into that sadness. When you're afraid of something, that joy can be found in it. But there is nothing that says that everything needs to have a happy moment. Everything, we have to be positive all the time. We're here to have this human experience. Cherish that, understand that, and you will find that Christ center within yourselves. I know because I've done it firsthand, and I always used to tell my wife I would never step on a stage and talk about anything unless I've done it, failed at it, and found my way out of it. So I promise you that even though you may be going through something today, tap into your other emotions and see how they can come together, just like prayer hands, and become one. So with that, let's go into a meditation now. So close your eyes if you feel so comfortable. And I want you to take a deep breath. And as you take this deep breath, all I want you to do is feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. It's beautiful. It reminds you that you are alive and you are present. I want you to feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest and abdomen as you breathe in. And right now, you are both the vessel and the voyage. And I want you to see within yourself a vast tapestry of woven from threads of light stretching across the universe, the world, through the stars. And each one of these threads represent a unique soul, a spark of consciousness, these individualized gifts that we each have. And how they cross each other, they entwine, they create patterns of connection, a symphony of our existence in this world. On this next breath, I want you to turn inward. I want you to see a beautiful lit sphere, a circle, a ball surrounding that heart space of yours. That sanctuary of your inner world, that which the Christ himself said to enter into that space within ourselves. It is now alight with love and light. And with every breath, it just pulses with light, resonating with the same threads that intertwine us in oneness. This is your existence. This is your point of divinity. And as you breathe, visualize that the sphere expands. It's just radiant warmth and compassion and acceptance. The words "you are enough" may resonate, letting you know that you are in a divine space. It embraces every aspect of your being, the light, the shadows, the laughter, the tears. And there's no judgment here. It's only love. So let's begin by acknowledging our layers. Like trees, you have rings of experience, things you've gone through from childhood to the moment you are sitting here today. You may have felt joy, sorrow, healing, growth, pain, fear, disgust. Each layer contributes to your unique melody, your unique harmony of life. And now feel gratitude for each and every experience. And let us begin to merge into our natural being, into nature itself. These trees that we used as an example with the rings, they whisper secrets, knowing that as we sit, the earth cradles our footsteps, it cradles ourselves sitting on it. We are not separated from this nature's symphony. We are one with that energy, knowing that it is in this space that we hear what is ours to do, that we hear and feel what it is that we need to do, knowing that we are in perfect form, that no matter what we're experiencing, we have the power within ourselves to heal, to find happiness, and most importantly, to be grateful for all that is us. As we breathe in and we begin to move into our inner sanctuary, we invite our shadows to dance. We don't fear those shadows, they're a part of us. These are those unexplored corners, the doubts, the fears, the insecurity. See them as stepping stones toward wholeness. As you embrace them, they transform into notes of resilience. Let's take a minute in that silence to just watch them dance. Take them by the hand, knowing there is no fear anymore, that they are a part of you that helped you get to this place. Now, as we continue to breathe in, we begin to expand our awareness beyond ourselves. We are no longer just in our divinity, but we see the threads of light reaching out from our hearts, connecting to other souls. Maybe it's the people in this Zoom, maybe it's people in our area, our family here in our homes. We see it reaching out to our neighbors, our cities, our towns, the entire world, as we embrace them, feeling the resonance of sharing that longing for understanding, compassion, and unity, to understand what's going on in our world today. And we know there are a lot of things going on that we perceive as challenges. And just maybe with this light joining everyone else, we can begin to understand, change our perspective to see the positive in what's happening, and knowing that we can engage in change as we join in oneness. And now I want you to visualize that exact sphere, that ball of light that's been surrounding your divinity, just expanding past yourselves, merging with everyone else's sphere. And we're just lighting up the world with this harmony that we're generating right now. And we're sending out. Your inner world reflects your outer world, and vice versa. And as you find peace within yourself, you contribute to the collective symphony of existence. And we are so grateful. And as we know, and so it is, as above in our higher consciousness, so it is below in our expression into the outer world. And we know it's already done because we say it is, and so it is, and so we let it be. In this moment, in this present moment, and in all moments to follow. And as we say thank you, thank you, thank you, we bring ourselves back to this moment. Take a deep breath, filling our life with excitement, knowing that moving forward, there is nothing more than light and love in every one of our emotions. And so it is. Amen.